You've heard of Alan Turing, of course. 8 types of Alan Turing type tests that have 4 different classifications where we look at the ethics of the data. And that allows us to create a new certification model for the data that's being used to train AI, because the data is the mindset of AI, in order to classify the ethical quality of the data or the mindset of AI. And that is really important. It's a bit like the British kite mark, but more advanced. So once we have an ethical mindset in AI and we're able to classify that ethical mindset, then we can start to actually move into developing AI at a new way, what I call the power of 3, which is understanding our world, our cultures, and our humanity, understanding its purpose and context in society, and understanding what is the best ethical virtues of humanity. And I talk about Aristotle, that AI will support us to advance. So we become we understand more of our sovereignty. We understand more of our humanity. We get the right job. The digital world is taken care of by AI. And it also provides solutions for COVID-19. It's got 3 chapters outlining how this new approach to AI can create pandemic resilient societies where everybody's well-being is protected. So there's a lot in the book. It also talks about industry, and it talks about how the industry is preparing for artificial intelligence at the silicon level. And so now is the time to get things right. So it's a playbook. It's great for students. It's great for innovators. It's great for governments. It's great for business. And it's also understandable by citizens, because everybody has to be in the conversation around artificial intelligence.
And that's great. So, Mr. Bailey, before we start your formal presentation, I'm very curious because you have such a varied background, and you have worked with government, you have worked with corporate sector, and basically you name it and you have done it. So my question is that you work with the government and you have worked with the private sector. How was experience? Is experience working with the government different from working with the corporate sector?
Yeah, it is, and it depends which part of the corporate sector you're looking at. Some of the companies in the private sector that I really admire, people like Intel, IBM, Hewlett Packard, and others like that. They are very forward thinking, and they understand that the digital world and AI is going to play an important role, and they're looking at it very mindfully. Other aspects of the corporate sector, and I won't name any names, are a little bit more difficult because they're only focused on the bottom line. They're yet to understand that humanity has to awaken and needs to awaken to understand the measure of us doing well in society is not about the bottom line. It's about people, it's about planet, it's about profit. And even Klaus Schwab, who I quote in the book, who is the chairman of the World Economic Forum, says exactly the same thing. So the corporations that understand, and Microsoft's a really great company to admire too, is that the corporations are starting to understand that success is not just about dollars, it's actually about people, planet, and profit. So that balance is important. When it comes to working with governments, when I work with city governments or regional governments, obviously the bureaucracy is less in cities and regions, but what I find is most of them are really open to understanding innovation in a new way. Most of them are very passionate about doing well for their citizens. When it comes to national governments, then obviously it's a lot more political, isn't it? And so it's understanding how to phrase it so it's apolitical, i.e. it's not left or right, but actually sits in the middle, where we're only focused on well-being of nations doing well and well-beings of citizens doing well. And as long as you have that dialogue in the middle, then it doesn't matter which party you're working with. And I've I've advised the current administration of US, and I've also advised the new administration that's coming in as well. I'm sat on the fence. So what I'm finding in government is that governments like Canada, India, the UK, Europe, the US, China, are all looking at AI in a very profound way. And they recognize that artificial intelligence has to become an important member of society if they're to maintain their leadership. Now, China's going different to the rest of the world, and that's okay, that's their choice. But it's important to understand that the rest of the world is starting to understand. Even Thailand quoted, released something recently on a national AI ethic initiative. And Tamil Nadu, a region in India, have announced their AI ethics strategy. Every and region is to understand that AI and AI ethics is their competitive and also for their citizens to do well.
Okay, that's great. It's great to hear from you. So now I would like to invite you to talk about, is AI the new guru, right? So this is a new term, and I think you've done work on this as well. So can you tell us? Can you give us a small presentation on something like why AI is the new guru?
I would love to, if I can share my screen.
Of course. So we'll make you co-host, and after that you'll be able to share your presentation with us. Just give us a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. Take your time. Take your time. Look, well, while we're waiting, what's your vision for AI and Pakistan or the Punjab?
Basically, it's in a very nascent. It's very nascent because businesses and governments are not. They are not. They don't see. The productivity it can bring to them. So businesses and the governments, they're very slowly trying to follow those trends and all that. So all I want to say is that you have to tell the businesses, you have to convince the governments as well, because they have no other examples working in Pakistan. So all the examples we have to give them are from the West. So actually we transform them according to our local knowledge, local culture, these kind of things. But what I'm saying is that it's at a very nascent state right now. Work is being done. The universities are very enthusiastic about working with people training in AI and how they go out in the market and apply their knowledge. So we do all kind of stuff. We do hackathons. We do group discussions, and what we do is interdisciplinary dialogues, right? So as you said, ethics, AI, IoT. So it's a very good combination. So what we try to do is get a bunch of people from different schools. Like our school is School of Business and Economics, and I'm head of Department of Information Systems. So we bring people like humanities and psychology, economics, and finance, and obviously IT, artificial intelligence people. So we take a multidisciplinary approach, so that we just not focus on the computer science part of it. As you've said, and that this approach is better than just focusing on the algorithms. If people are not understanding them, if people are not comprehending them, then it's not. All of our efforts are in vain. So yeah. So I want to say it's in a very nascent state right now, but we are making progress very, very soon, because West has to do research and all these kind of things. And what we can do is to use their models. One example is that in the telecommunication industry, from 70s to end of 90s, the companies spend a lot of money on the infrastructure. But after 2003, the smartphones era came, and everybody started using smartphones. So we didn't have to make all that infrastructure in telecommunication. We leapfrogged to smartphones. So that saved us a lot of money and a lot of resources. So again, I'm trying to say that we see the West as leaders in AI, and we try to implement that according to all our traditions and our cultures.
Yeah, I really like what you just said. I like the fact you're bringing philosophy has to come into AI ethics, and I'm glad you mentioned the humanities. Finland's economic minister said this about AI, and they're not a powerhouse in AI like the US or Canada or UK or Europe or whatever. And what he said is, you know, we're going to become the best programmers of AI, and that is our place in the world. And so what they're doing is they're training their workforce and also the general population to program in AI to be able to for innovation to occur inside their country, for their country, by the people. And this is really quite profound. And that kind of approach, it sounds like that's what you're doing, and that's incredible, because that's a lovely approach. When you look to the West, it's great to see what they're up to, and it's good to be able to take the best practices, but be careful that your culture doesn't get interfered with, because that would be a shame. And some of the I'm a little bit disruptive, right? And I tend to speak the truth. So some of the initiatives that have been launched around national AI ethics and ways of doing it are really quite poor, actually. And they're just talk. There's no solutions. And that's why I invested, it was about 10 years I was writing this book, but I invested 8 months of solid writing, 7 days a week. And it was for 8 months in order to get this book out for countries like Pakistan and for regions like the Punjab, to be able to define your own future, because that is important. And you know, it's about honoring your past, it's honoring your cultures of today, and allowing them to advance into the future mindfully. And AI should be a mindful partner that really understands the destiny of Pakistan and the Punjab. So,
Mr. Bailey, before you start a conversation, I'm very curious about all the topics you've worked on, and I'm very fascinated. So, one question which came to my mind is, and I saw on your profile as well. So, you're advising governments and quite a lot of people on COVID, right? So, I just want to know that, how are you, and giving them this advice, and, how's it going? Because everybody right now, wants to listen to a solution to COVID. But, I just want to know that how did you get involved in this?
Well, first of all, I can't disclose all the conversations because they're private. But what I will, people reach out to me, so I will get a call from someone in government, and I'll get invited into a meeting. And I've worked closely with the Department of Homeland Security in the US on talking about COVID solutions, and I had the honor of sitting down with advisors to the president and with G7 countries discussing around a round table our views on AI, and they asked my views and they took them in, which was great. So what I'm finding is that some of the big governments, like the US, who have announced their quantum computing strategy, which is really important, and also their new trustworthy AI, which I'm going to write a blog about, which will disrupt everything they're thinking of at the moment. They've got good intent, and their strategy is very good. The problem is that if there's too much policy and governance in the way, then that will stall innovation. And some of the problems that they're going to realize, and I'll declare this now, and I'll probably get into trouble for it, but I will say it, is that we've seen films, and I talk about this in the presentation, Coded Bias and The Social Dilemma, that expose the lack of ethics in some of these big corporations, and that has to change. And so the question is to the US, where will they look for their solutions from partners that can be trusted? More than 60%, I think Pew published a report last year where the majority of American people don't trust the government or big business with their data because there's no transparency. And that's why I invented these new Turing tests for the ethical quality of data. So there's a huge problem around trust in the US and in general in society around data, how our data is being protected, how it's being stored, what it's being used for, and the ethical quality of the end products. There's a big conversation here. And so this will not go away unless the government bring in the public and create a trust paradigm with the public. Then governments are going to hit real problems. Now, if we actually bring the public into the innovation of AI and to bring new data governance where their data, they have clear transparency of their data, clear understanding of how it's being used, and lots of other Turing tests that I put together, then they trust and they open more data sets willingly. When we have more data sets that are broader and deeper, we can do better with AI. So it makes sense to bring the public into this conversation so that ethics of our data, which is the DNA of AI, is basically ethical and can evolve further. And so, you know, there's lots of big conversations that are coming, and we can't run away from it. The unrest from the general public around data and AI won't go away. So how do we bring the public into it? And that's why I wrote the book, Evolutionary Ethics. So there we are. Long-winded answer. I talk a lot.
No. That's right. So I'm a big talker as well. So it's an interesting combination. You were talking a lot and I'm talking a lot as well. So having said that, I would like you to present the presentation on Is AI the New Guru? You are the co-host now, and you can share your screen. So please show us a presentation and enlighten us on that.
Great. So can you see that? Can you see that screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. I just need to reduce this down. I just need to reduce the thumbnail. Just a moment. Okay, there we are. Just a minute. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Should we start?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to the folks that have joined us. It's an honor to be here with the UMT faculty and students to discuss, is artificial intelligence the new guru? You can find out more about what we're doing at aiethics.world, and you can follow me on Instagram, the AI Guru. You can follow me on Facebook, Matthew James Bailey Author, and also on YouTube, Inventing World 3.0. There's lots of videos and podcasts on YouTube and aiethics.world that will help you to understand in a new way the purpose of artificial intelligence and how you can get involved. The new book, Inventing World 3.0, is available on Amazon and Apple, and in ebook and also in paper copy as well, in black and white and also color. And if you go to aiethics.world, you'll find out how to buy the book. And we tested the narrative of this book. It's easy to understand for anybody in society. We tested it with the elderly, we tested it with the young, we tested it with business leaders, global leaders, professors, all sorts of different people to make sure that you could understand this narrative. And this really is the playbook of the future for artificial intelligence and humanity. So this is the big question. Many of us have seen films on artificial intelligence. Is it going to destroy humanity? You know, we've seen The Terminator, we've seen The Matrix, we've seen many other types of films and movies and TV series where AI is the real baddie, isn't it? And the question is, can AI become a guru or a wise intelligence within society to support humanity, to support our lives, and to help us to move into an exciting future where it honors our cultures, our beliefs, our traditions, and also our sovereignty? And so this is the big question. Where is AI going? Are we heading to a Skynet, or are we heading to a more exciting future? And the good news is we're heading towards a more exciting future. So Professor Stephen Hawking, who I had the pleasure of meeting one fine summer's day in Cambridge, he said quite a lot about artificial intelligence, and he's quoted in the book. And he said this, he said, artificial intelligence could be the biggest event in human history. Well, that's pretty cool, isn't it? But it also could be the end of the human race. Not so cool. So he advises us that really we should stop for a moment and focus on making our AI better, and also focus on it being a benefit for society and a benefit for humanity. I think that makes sense. You know, Amit Ray, one of the famous scientists in artificial intelligence, said as more and more artificial intelligence enters society, then more and more emotionally intelligent need to be part of our leadership. And so artificial intelligence is also an examination of our humanity, an examination and an offering for us to advance into a better human experience. It's kind of a mirror. So briefly, we've already discussed this beforehand, but I thought it'd be useful to share with you who are the leaders in AI at the moment. And so Canada, I would say, have the best in class national initiative with their national and supercluster initiative. What they've done is they've invested a lot of money in 4 major technology clusters in or regions in Canada: Toronto, Alberta, Montreal, and Vancouver. And what they're doing is they're bringing different regions of Canada together in order to innovate artificial intelligence, not only for inward country service, but also to export their AIs and their technologies too. And it's a great strategy. The US obviously are a leader in AI. Excuse me, they made 2 announcements recently that were really exciting. One was a new quantum computing strategy, which is really important for cybersecurity encryption and protecting AI. And also they've made an announcement on trustworthy AI to be used in government to make government services operate more efficiently and to benefit the citizens, although that is an early conversation. And of course, the UK, Europe, and China are involved. And I wanted to share some of the companies to look out for. Intel is a company to watch out for in AI. They've got a brand new initiative called Ambient Science, and it's mentioned in the book. And you can find a great talk on IEEE where they talk about ambient science, where data has its own awareness. It's pretty cool, actually. Obviously, Neuralink with Elon Musk is doing some great stuff about how can AI within the body help people to walk and get over certain medical conditions. And people like IBM are also obviously very active in quantum computing and AI. So those are some of the companies I thought would be good for you just to keep an eye out for. And if you ever kind of want to get a job after you've created an AI, these are some of the companies to have a look out for. And so artificial intelligence is already providing wisdom in society. You're all probably aware of the different aspects of AI and the different fields of AI, such as deep learning, which IBM are really good at, and Google and some others, machine learning, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive learning. There's all sorts of different branches of AI that's emerging. And I wanted to share a couple of things with you about where AI is providing wisdom in society that I think will be useful for you. On the left-hand side, you see this poor chap playing a game of Go. He's the champion of Go, and Go's a Chinese game that's the most complicated board game in the world. And he was beaten by a deep learning computing system, not just once, not just twice, but 100 times consecutively. And so what this shows is artificial intelligence is learning how to make decisions and adapt to particular conditions within a world scenario. Even though it's a game, this has really important implications for other markets and other services that AI can do, where it can have great decision making and adapt to what's going on around it. Self-driving cars and automated vehicles, they exist today, and they're only going to be more prominent. And AI is very much in the part of that. In Tesla, AI is throughout the car. There's guys in Scotland at 5AI that are using AI to self-drive the car, but to protect people as they're driving. And AI is also used in other aspects of car systems to make sure that you're kept safe. So if you want to overtake on a busy road or a busy motorway, you know, AI is looking out just to see what traffic's around you to ensure that you're kept safe. And one thing that's interesting is that AI is becoming voice interactive. And this is important because our humanity, our voice is now interacting with AI through our Alexa or through our mobile phone with Siri or other types of applications. And so we're learning to speak into the digital world through AI. And this is really, really important because the human voice, our humanity, is now starting to interact with the digital world thanks to AI. And of course, I had to mention cricket. Cricket is obviously a very popular sport in Pakistan. But did you know that AI is used in hotspot, where it detects whether the cricket ball has clipped the side of the bat and caught by the wicketkeeper and the person is out? So AI is being used in cricket and also in the Duckworth-Lewis, where two cricket teams, thanks to the rain, have to stop playing cricket, and AI is making a decision who wins. And so AI in cricket is becoming the third umpire, which is quite an interesting scenario. What's more troubling is that AI and how it's working in social media. You know, half of the world's population is connected to social media and active on social media. But what we're finding is that those AI algorithms are not particularly ethical, and they're controlling a narrative. And there's two films to look out for. One is The Coded Bias, and this is a film about some wonderful individuals, one from MIT, that found that AI in facial recognition was actually having a bias against certain cultures, and that's not cool. You know, in the UK, there was a project in London where 2,400 people were misidentified due to facial recognition. Primarily, they were biased against a particular culture, and that's not cool. And The Social Dilemma is another interesting film on Netflix for you to watch that also talks about how unethical some of these social media companies have been in controlling your narrative on social media, and that's not cool either. And if AI was a digital citizen in society, then they will be violating some of our democratic laws, and that's not cool. So we need to really examine the ethical quality of AI that's being deployed today. And I put this joke in the corner. I hope most of you get it. You probably watch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where people ask, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And the good news is it's not AI. So, you know, AI is not going to take over the world, but we have to be mindful and steward it into its future. And I wanted to share this, and the professor and I kind of talked about this earlier, is that data is what trains the mindset of artificial intelligence. And so AI data ethics, i.e. the quality of the data, the ethical quality of data determines the ethical quality of the artificial intelligence itself. And in the book I talk about, and we do this in aiethics.world, we train innovators how to do this. We've actually come up with a new model based on the human helix. And this is how we can use machine learning, deep learning, other types of AI to be able to program the base pairs of an AI helix, DNA helix, with the cultures and belief systems and sovereignty of individuals, of communities, of religious groups, of other types of cultures as well, and communities. And so what that does is that gives AI a real context of how it should honor people with certain values, belief systems, and values. We mentioned earlier that Pew Research Center, they published a report last year that Americans have a real concern over data privacy. They're confused and they feel there's no lack of control over their personal information. And that's not cool. It's not democratic. You see, at the end of the day, if we're going to have ethics in AI, then we need ethics in its data itself. And I'll talk with you briefly about some Alan Turing tests that are brand new tests, world first tests that allow you to be able to certify based on your governance models, based on your culture and belief systems to qualify the ethical quality of data being used to train AI. And you'll see in the middle some medals you can award through our data ethic model. The classify whether the ethics for a particular AI algorithm, its data, are bronze, which isn't good, or whether it's platinum, which is really good. And platinum is pure ethical. And in the book, we actually measure the quality of social media. You can see here, it's actually all bronze and it's really quite poor. But when you look at the UK healthcare system, there's platinum emerging because they're very ethical in how they manage their data to train AI. So data ethics, because it's the DNA of AI, is a fundamental conversation for us to have within AI ethics. And there's a lot more in this that we can go into, but I'm happy to share the slides afterwards. So let's look at our world today, what I call world 1.0 or 1.0. So David Attenborough, who most of you have seen on the BBC, he's done some wonderful programs on our planet and our natural world. And he has released a film recently on Netflix talking about how our environment has reached a point of no return. And that's really troubling. And we need a new approach. That's because most of society has been governed by an industrial mindset. And that really is restrictive in order for us to break free and to innovate past the challenges that we face today. We're aware of the United Nations. They have 17 Sustainability Development Goals for 2030. And they list a whole list of inequities in society, from poverty through to lack of education, through to all different types of aspects, where if we're to do well as a society, then we should be addressing and winning in these challenges. And human progress itself has created significant challenges. There's all sorts of inequities in society. We mentioned earlier about skills and jobs being replaced by AI. Did you know that 70% of the fashion workers in India will probably become unemployed in the next 5 to 10 years thanks to AI? So a whole new retraining process is needed. Human progress has caused all sorts of issues, hasn't it? And we're all aware that 55% of the world's population are living within cities. And that means in order for public services, for our resource and a partnership with the environment, we need automation. We need AI to make things to run quicker and to optimize services, and also to increase efficiency with our resources. So the question is, what's the role of artificial intelligence in World 1.0 today to bring us back into balance? And that is what we're going to be discussing. Right. So where is AI today? AI is locked in its prison. And that is a real statement. It is creating some value within society, as I've mentioned before, also in the field of genomics, detecting healthcare, cancer earlier in ladies. It's protecting our cyber grids, our energy grids. It's in those annoying chatbots. So it is part of society, but actually it really is unethical. And the problem is, when AI is unethical, it can't become a member of society because it doesn't understand our cultures and it isn't being welcomed by citizens. There's a real poor democratization of innovation. We need more education of AI innovators. We need more entrepreneurship in order to stimulate small businesses and startups to be able to innovate AI. At the moment, AI innovation is controlled by big business and is controlled by certain academic institutions. And that's not cool. We need to bring it into the public domain and get our students, our startups innovating and stimulate entrepreneurship. And we spoke earlier about citizens being fearful of AI and not being engaged, and they're not involved in the AI process at all. And that's not cool either. We've talked about data being unethical. We need new governance models to bring ethics into the digital world that remains fundamentally unethical at the moment, and we need more transparency. One of the other things to mention here is that as we bring ethical ethics into the DNA of AI, as we start to make the digital world ethical and AI, then we can actually bring your data, which is an extension of your human sovereignty, into one place to train your own personalized AI, like a digital buddy that works alongside you in life to support you with a self-actualized life, get you the right job, make sure your family's thriving, ensure that you're having a good mental health and a good well-being. Personalized AI is a natural outcome from AI data ethics and a good ethical digital world. Our innovation is poorly focused. A lot of the money that goes into AI is things like into robots for warfare or into social media. That really doesn't benefit most people in society. So our focus is wrong. There is a severe lack of AI data ethics or AI ethics standards. These are just emerging, but they're just principles, which is great, but there are solutions. And so we need to advance our AI data ethics at a national level. At the moment, and this could be a bit disruptive, and I apologize if it's a bit disruptive, but I'm going to say it, is because there is no governance of the ethical mindset of AI, the schizophrenic AI deployed throughout society, because there's no ethical certification or qualification of AI and its digital mindset. And so we have schizophrenic AI at the moment. And really, people have not looked at how AI aligns with our cultures, our values, our ethical morals, our beliefs within our nations, within our regions, within our cities, and within our communities, religious groups, and personal belief systems. So there's a long way to go for AI to be liberated from its prison. And so the human-machine partnership, or the human-artificial intelligence partnership, is severely limited at the moment. They're both separated. And so artificial intelligence really is not able to step into the human story and step into society, into our nations, to move us into a thrilling future, to solve the challenges we have in society, until we use things like evolutionary ethics to awaken its mindset and liberate it. I wanted to put this slide up, and I hope you don't mind because it's important, is that ancient wisdom, I've found, can guide modern society. And there's three things I'd like to share with you. One is there's lots of different ancient manuscripts, aren't there, and teachings, and these are important, aren't they? We hold them dear today. But what some of the famous inventors in quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and people like Nikola Tesla said publicly, that things like the Vedic teachings help them in understanding modern science, which is crazy, isn't it? How can something that's written 5,000 years ago can actually be a guide for today? But these folks who are well known throughout the world, some of them Nobel laureates, have publicly stated that ancient teaching helped them with modern innovation. And the same will probably apply to Pakistan and the Punjab. Democritus, he was in ancient Greece, and he proposed the atomic structure in ancient Greece. No spectrometers, no supercomputers, but he came up with this idea of an atom, which is fantastic. And in the book, Inventing World 3.0, as part of evolutionary ethics, as part of understanding our humanity and giving that humanity understanding to AI so it knows how to honor us, I went to Aristotle. And he wrote a fantastic book called The Nicomachean Ethics, which outlined 11 ethical virtues that describe the best of us, like greatness of soul, justice, ambition, wittiness, friendliness, compassion, other things like that. And I believe that if AI is to be welcomed within society, it needs to understand those aspects of us in order to operate benevolently and mindfully with us. So this is something that you will never seen before unless you've seen some of my videos. And this really is a brand new approach to artificial intelligence. On the right-hand side, you'll see the AI ethical DNA base pairs. It's outlined in the book. And we explain how we can put our own individual culture into AI. It explains how to put the culture of a nation or your communities into AI, and also how to put your planet principles or your environmental mandates to find a partnership with your environment into AI. And so this really is an opportunity for huge innovation, where you can use machine learning and deep learning to create base pairs that will be combined together, that will actually create what I call an evolutionary AI. And this kind of AI honors our relationship with our planet, honors our cultures, belief systems, morals and values. It honors your sovereignty and your humanity, and it understands its purpose in the world. You know, AI itself for cybersecurity will have certain very tight mandates, but when it comes to maybe suggesting a recipe for you, or even managing our transportation systems, it will probably have a different type of mandate in the world. So this is about how do we put the culture of our planet, your national culture, your personal cultures, your humanity and sovereignty into the mindset of AI. And this is a huge opportunity for innovation. So maybe we'll see a Punjab evolutionary AI, or even a Pakistan type of evolutionary AI. So let's look at World 3.0. We've used evolutionary ethics, and basically humans and AI are powerful allies. We're awakened, our mindset is awakened. We recognize that the industrial mindset has got us so far, but in the words of Buckminster Fuller, the famous inventor, American inventor, said this: in order to change a system, don't fight against it, create a new system in order to move forward. And that makes good sense. And that is the kind of thinking we have here. You know, Einstein said that knowledge is limited, but imagination takes us into the future. And this is the kind of mindset that we have in World 3.0, an evolutionary mindset. In here, artificial intelligence is a member of society. And so humans and AI, both intelligences, are working together in a beneficial manner to serve the individual, to serve our businesses, to serve our cultures, to serve our nations. And we have machine-centric systems. So we've moved from inefficient human-centric systems into machine-centric systems, which makes things run much more efficiently and really powerfully. And more importantly, as I keep on saying, is that AI aligns with the advancement and nurtures our cultures, both national, religious, social, and personal. It brings in the green nation, ensures we have a great relationship with the environment, and also honors you, the individual, with your well-being, your self-development, and your personal advancement as well. It protects your borders from invasion, both physical borders, but also your digital borders. And haven't we just seen something awful happen in the US, where there's been a big cyber attack and data has been taken out west and a lot of data. AI is proactive in circumventing climatic events, whether that's through flooding or whether that's through fire or whether it's through other things as well. It's proactively making our systems operate so that we have a partnership with the environment, but also in the case of an emergency, it knows it's coming, it evacuates people, and also takes care of all those different assets that are around. Citizens are involved in the advancement of AI. We see loads of entrepreneurs in AI. We see lots of different businesses in AI, inventing AI in society. Education skills and jobs have advanced. And AI has transformed healthcare. You know, one of the problems we're all facing is this COVID-19 challenge. And so how can we use AI to protect the well-being of the individual with great food, healthy food, good exercise, good mental health? How does it protect us from these different types of catastrophic events that happen? AI is helping us to stay healthy and to circumvent pandemics. And the book speaks about three different chapters on how we can do this. Cities and rural communities, that's important to think about. Rural communities have transformed in their experience. So smart cities has AI throughout all its systems, making sure that our society is running at a great speed and with great efficiency and in a playful manner. And what's interesting here is that as Pakistan develops its standard for AI ethics, for evolutionary ethics, as it starts to standardize on AI, then it can examine what other nations are doing, and maybe there's a common standard with other types of nations that have the similar AI, at which point then the AIs can operate across regions, across nations. At which point then you've got an incredible efficiency the like never seen before. And so we're going to see AI become standardized by nations based on its beliefs and its cultures, its values. That transparency will help dialogue with other nations that have the same cultures, values, and beliefs to collaborate together and have AI operating across different nations. And so this is really important. This is a world where AI is right in the middle of society, but it's honoring the human experience and advancing our human experience too. But this is not utopia. This is a platform for future generations to leapfrog into their future and not be held back by the challenges of today. So briefly, this is really what the book's about. It talks about three different realities, different mindsets and different conditions in order for nations to advance into the future with AI. It examines a new AI data ethics model, new Turing tests that you can use or to bring new goods to your AI, fundamental ethical line with your vision for the Punjab and also Pakistan. Explain the humanity, our humanity into AI so it can interact with us in a meaningful fashion. And also it helps us to circumvent the issues that we see with social dilemma and poor ethics in that world. And so artificial intelligence becomes a balanced guru, or a guru that helps us to achieve balance, where it is addressing and solving the Paris Climate Accord agreement, bring the environment back into harmony. It's helping us to achieve national targets around the environment. It's becoming the wise intelligence to help us to achieve those targets. It's also addressed the AI wisdom act into the SDGs, able for them to be resolved, for us to then move beyond into something that is no longer hindered by the legacy that the Sustainability Development Goals outlines. Personalized AI is active, and so you have a wise digital buddy, like your own personal guru in life, if you will, that understands you, that understands what you want to achieve in life, to understand what's good for your well-being, and be an advisor, if you will, or a guide to make suggestions for you to advance and thrive in your human experience. And also AI is bringing wisdom to us by honoring our cultures, our values, and our beliefs. And so when it's in society, it's operating in a framework that you in the Punjab and the Pakistani folks believe are really important values and really important cultural aspects for it to honor as a citizen within your society. And so briefly, as we come to the end, artificial intelligence in Pakistan, there could be a great opportunity here for a strategy for Pakistan. First of all, an evolutionary ethics framework will really help you to define your future with AI for it to honor your past, current society, and to take you into the future. So education and innovation will have to thrive within Pakistan. As we mentioned earlier, investment in super and quantum computing will be important as part of your strategy. Maybe you have a partner nation where you have super and quantum computing strategies and access to, or maybe you'll invest. Innovation hubs, both locally and regionally and nationally, are going to be important. And you will need AI quality certification bodies to make sure the ethical quality of AI is in line with the purpose of your region and also your nation. You're going to need new policy and governance. in order to be able to support this new advancement in AI. And so there's an opportunity for government, both locally, regionally, and nationally, to innovate their policy and their governance. The next generation of ICT in society, this will be important. So data centers are one thing, but also your edge compute will be important. And there's a whole video on this on Inventing World 3.0, talking about how do we bring AI as a digital citizen in society. And I talk about ICT. And the reason why edge compute is going to be really important is because edge compute is where AI can live, and therefore it can operate much faster in society because it's right in the middle of society. So it can literally be able to communicate amongst itself in different edge computing platforms, collaborating on things like smart transportation or emergency response or healthcare or smart buildings or smart regions. It doesn't really matter. Edge compute allows you to be able to have AI at the edge and to operate closer in society and do better. You'll need national and regional AI deployment frameworks. So once AI has passed the Pakistan or Punjab digital citizen test, then how do you deploy it? And that's going to be important too. I've mentioned Canada, which is probably #1 model in the developed world for an AI strategy. And I've also mentioned that Finland, 1% of their population are learning to program in AI. And it sounds like that the Punjab and the folks at UNT, and maybe Pakistan itself, this will be a good approach for you to be able to advance your partnership AI, your citizens, your students, your innovators, being able to program in itself. So is AI the new guru? Well, the answer is AI can be a with intelligence to solve problems in society and for Pakistan and the Punjab to advance into its future. So AI combined with evolutionary ethics can advance Pakistan and its citizens into a thrilling future, honoring traditions and activating its future. So I'll share this slide because this is about the book and we've kind of covered all this. Just briefly, as I close, aiethics.world. This is an online academy for government, business and academia and students on how to invent the future of AI using evolutionary ethics. We can put together semester courses for you, and we're doing that at the moment. And of course, there's an opportunity for you to buy the book Inventing World 3.0, so you can do it yourself without the need to ask me, but I'm here to help. And the question is this: are you ready to invent the future of Punjab and the future of Pakistan? So that's the end of the talk. Thank you for joining me and joining us, and I'll be delighted to answer any questions. Okay, there we are.
First of all, I must say that was a fascinating presentation, and it has really enlightened us on the ethics and application part of artificial intelligence. There are so many questions. People are very curious, and if you see, there are about 20 questions people are want to ask. But I want to ask you just a quick question, which is very important for us, very, very important. You anticipated the new technology, right? So how did you do that, and how can we anticipate something, something that is going to be, huge in the future? So can you tell me about anticipation?
What do you mean by that? Could you be a little bit more specific, please?
Yes, you were the pioneers in the field of IoT and all that kind of stuff, when people didn't even know about IoT and all that. But you figured out that this is going to be huge in the future, right? So how do have you got any have you got any explanation or advice on how can we do that?
So if I understand the question, is that are you asking? Right, I'm kind of trying to understand the question. I apologize. the connection's a little bit funny here.
Okay.
Are you asking for advice on how you can move forward with AI, or are you asking for advice on how you can go from IoT into AI?
I wanted to take the advice on how do we move ahead.
How do you move ahead? Okay, great. Well, that's a great question. How long have you got? So the first thing I think to do is to obviously the book provides guidelines, and I can help as well. And aiethics.world, we've got a great team there, full of diversity. We can help as well to start shaping your future. Let me read some of the at the back of the book. There's some initial guidelines to get you going, and let me share with you things that I would advise to nations. Okay, the first thing is I would set up a task force. Okay, now are you looking at, nationally, Pakistan or Punjab, regional wide? Which one are you considering?
Yeah, we're considering Punjab and Pakistan, but because this is the most progressive area in Pakistan, and this is an area which is very willing to accept new technology. So, what's your advice?
Yeah, so the first thing is to set up a task force to define what your regional strategy is for artificial intelligence. And one of the most powerful economic development plays you can do is to bring together your ecosystem of stakeholders. That's obviously academia, that's research and development, that's business, that's government, and also the startups and investors. Bring together your stakeholders that will innovate your future for the Punjab as part of a task force. And that's going to be really important, because that will allow you then to be able to define, where do you want AI to create impact? What's your vision for AI for different aspects of the Punjab in business or in academia or in government or in environment? And what's your vision for it to maybe transform your educational system? What's your vision for it to be a member in society? These things are going to be very important. But as part of that, you have to look at what are your cultures, your beliefs and your values in the Punjab, and you have to list those. That's going to be really important, because what you're creating is kind of a constitution for artificial intelligence and what it has to adhere to and comply with. And you then want your stakeholders to be able to innovate that together. Taking a registry of what artificial intelligence is happening within the Punjab, which institutions are focusing on AI, which aspects of AI, which businesses are using AI or deploying AI. Understanding where AI is at the moment is going to be really important for you moving forward. So the task force is going to be really, really important, and that will have to involve your Punjabi government as well, because they're going to have to innovate the policy to support you. You're going to have to build a regional strategy around AI. And that's where you start to create your AI data ethics certification model, and also your new approach to AI, what I call the Power of Three or evolutionary AI. And you're going to have to think about border control or a digital citizen test for it to be deployed within the region in order for it to align with what the task force has agreed it should comply with. Some other things, if you haven't got an AI innovation ecosystem, then you're going to have to build one. And what does that mean? That really means is having kind of an innovation center or an innovation ecosystem that's focused solely on AI. And that could be around your university. It could be around a particular business. It could be a new bit of land that you buy. It doesn't really matter. Having an innovation ecosystem where you're looking at existing AI technologies, machine learning, deep learning, and other aspects, and then basically bringing in your AI ethics into those different AIs and then transforming them to be deployed within society to tackle particular problems within the Punjab region, or to advance. It might be agriculture, for example. It could be a number of things. So the task force will define your principles, your AI ethics standards. You'll need an AI ethics clearinghouse. You need to bring in stakeholders. You're going to need an AI innovation ecosystem where the innovation for AI for the Punjab is going through this ecosystem in order for it to then be deployed throughout the Punjab itself. Those are a few strategies. I could talk all night, but I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to give some concluding remarks. You know, in our university, the Honorable President, Mr. Ibrahim Hassan Murad, you know, is very interested in artificial intelligence, and he's trying to make artificial intelligence labs. He's trying to make artificial intelligence ecosystem in the university, and you know, he's investing money so that we can talk to the businesses, take their problems, and try to devise solutions for them. So it's not just about you know, universities are you know, not famous for doing practical stuff, but you know, in AI we are doing practical stuff. We're trying to do practical stuff. I cannot say for certainty that this is all happening, but with the help of the President Ibrahim Hassan Murad, we are going in the right direction, in a progressive direction, and hopefully, inshallah, we will be able to make a whole AI, artificial intelligence ecosystem. So, Mr. Bainey, there are some questions. There are a lot of questions. People are very curious, and you know, they are so they are asking a lot of function. I see in the chat. So, would you like to take some questions?
Sure, if people want to ask questions, that's great.
Okay, let me have a look.
I think raise the hands.
All right, so if anybody has a question, please, can you please raise your hand and I unmute you? Asad, I think. Yes, Asad, what do you want to ask?
Hello, this has been a very informative talk. I have a couple of questions for you. You talk about AI in our personal lives, like helping us do things, helping us living properly. And I quote, you said that it will give us the optimum experience of being a human. So what I think, like this is my personal belief, since people are already seeing these things like social dilemma and everything like that, they're afraid to give out their personal information to the AI, whatever company is presenting you with this thing, new innovation, right? So what do you think? How do you tackle that?
That's a great question, and thanks for asking. And so first of all is that you have, well, first of all, this is my thesis, is that data is a sovereign expression of you. And I think we can agree with that, because it sounds like that you agree with that too. And at the moment, your sovereignty is fractured between all these different systems, okay, that are all AI driven. So you have an AI that will drive your finance, you'll have an AI on your phone, you'll have an AI on your social media, you'll have an AI elsewhere. There are different aspects of AI already interacting with your life, but they're all disconnected, okay? And you have no idea how your data is being used. So AI data ethics, and Intel agree with me on this, is that, well, Coty does, is that AI data ethics, because we're putting pressure on business to certify the quality of the data, to make sure that they are providing transparency, that make sure we see how our data is being used, okay? That gives us visibility onto how AI is effectively really being used around us. But more importantly, because your sovereignty, which is your data, as we advance data governance, where you own your data and a right to it, then you can bring it back into your own personal vault. So what that means is, with all your data, and this includes your mobile phone and you're being tracked and all that, Because all your data is in your personal vault under new data governance, because AI data ethics has driven it, then you can start training your own personalized AI. And this means that the AI that is kind of around you as your digital guardian or your buddy or your guru is then interfacing with the other AIs. And so what it means, it's protecting your rights. It's giving you the best services because it's automatically negotiating on your behalf. And it's preventing interference from other types of AIs that may be trying to take you down a narrative or down a particular path that violates your well-being and your values. So data ethics actually enables your own AI to come close to you in a personal vault and then becomes a shield into all these different services. At the moment, there is no shield. And so your digital buddy becomes your AI digital shield, and it understands you because it has your personal data within its mindset, under your control and your ownership. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
What do you think? First, let's hear from you. What do you think?
I'm very nervous because half of my professors are in this and I'm talking. So yeah, I think that is a very good approach, that you think the AI is going to be protecting your data as well as giving you solutions from it. But there is someone that will govern all of this, right? That's my issue, that there is a power above it that's going to be looking over everything the AI does. They would maybe release patches for it, so they would know what it is up to make it better, right?
Right. So this is a really good question, and to all the professors that are your professors, top of the class, A++ for these questions, because you go to the very heart of AI, which is great. So what we'll see is, well, first of all, let me ask you a question. What happens if data ethics is in the silicon of all computing systems?
We would have a better security system for our data, and the AI or anyone would not use it illegally in some way, unethically. Right.
So that that might be something that will change society. But I think we need to understand truly, who are we as a human species and what do we want to become? Do we want to stick in this industrial mindset, which really is about us being sheep of data, right? And I'm sorry I don't mean to offend anybody, but that's an extreme view and I apologize. But basically is, as we understand that our sovereignty as human beings is extended as data, as we start to understand that data ethics will actually, I believe, will release a huge wave of innovation that will be trillions and trillions of dollars of new economic growth, because there's a trust and because there's more opportunity to use data that is ethical to innovate AI. I believe this will create a massive new economy. So how do we persuade the big business or the guys at the top that you said to actually come and play? Well, there's different ways we can do this. First of all, it takes one region in the world to do this, and they see the benefits and everybody will follow. We could see data ethics and new forms of AI governance and AI ethics at the silicon level, or even in the operating systems of these different types of computing devices, which would also change the world. We're also seeing pressure from government making these big social media companies, which I don't think are bad. I think it's just a matter of them evolving into a new mindset. They're talking about breaking them up because they have too much control and there's not enough transparency. So I think there's a number of things in play at the moment. And I believe that we will get there, but I'm not sure which way we're going to get there. So I think that we have to tackle these a different way. But all it takes is one new silicon chip that supports data ethics. It takes one region to do this. And then because they're reaping the benefits, everybody else will have to follow.
Okay. We have a lot of people, more people would like to take questions, but we don't have a lot of time, so we can't really do that. We already took, some extra time of Mr. Bailey, and we are very thankful for that. So one thing I want to say is that Mr. Bailey's book is available in the library, and I highly recommend his book, so that in all the talks you cannot remember everything. So once you have the book in front of you, you can go through the topics deeply and really learn from them. So I really recommend you buy this book. And one final question I would like to ask Mr. Bailey is that what kind of courses should we teach in the university, and what sort of content should be in those courses, so that if you can tell us a little bit about that, so hopefully we can be more focused on teaching of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so at the back of the book, there's some guidance for students in academia. But this is my advice, is that for AI and AI, first of all, AI ethics is a fundamental part of AI now, in order for it to advance. So philosophy has to come into the conversation around AI now. Humanities has to come into that. There's different types of human aspects that you'll teach in your university, like philosophy and others, that will have to come into the AI ethics discussion, because that's going to be very, very important. So I think what we're seeing is, and we're starting to see this around the world with different universities, is that they are recognizing that AI is no longer purely a mathematical or a computing science degree. It has different aspects that have to come into it, because the world has said effectively AI ethics is so important. So bring in philosophy, bring in humanities, bring in the other aspects that are going to be important as part of the AI innovation. That's going to be important. Having a course on AI ethics is going to be really, really important. And, set up this task force will be really important for you to actually understand the values and cultures and beliefs of the Punjab and or Pakistan itself, and start to understand, well, if these are really important to us, these ethics, how do we bring them into AI, and how do we ensure that the AIs deployed in the Punjab and Pakistan are compliant with those? And I think that's important. I'm a great believer of honoring our past, honoring our traditions, both ancient and modern, and bringing that into the artificial conversation, intelligent conversation. I just think that's really important. So that would be my advice to get.
Okay. That's very good. Mr. Bailey, we are very thankful to you, the Honorable President, the Honorable Rector, the Honorable DG of University of Management and Technology, and the whole faculty, who really learned from this experience. Thanks from you, and I really hope that we can organize these kind of events in the future as well. This is going to really help us, as a developing country, to move towards a new AI ecosystem, which will change the way the students will be educated, and the way we present our ideas and things to the media. Thanks so much for your time.
And I'm here to help. So, we can talk about helping. We can talk about getting the books over there if you need them. We're here to help. But I want to thank you for reaching out. And it's wonderful to see Pakistan stepping into its leadership, and the Punjab and the UMT folks. It's delightful to see that. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. I will try to link with you on LinkedIn, and we can be in touch, and so that I can get your updates on all the social media.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. I'm just ending now, and I would like to thank you again for giving us your time. The presentation meeting was for 1 hour, but you gave us 28 more minutes. And these are precious minutes, and we are really thankful for that. So I'm ending the meeting right now. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.